Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership What's on Your Mind. Make sure if you haven't already, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel or follow us on your podcast provider. Remember, the main aim of this is to add value to your leadership journey and bringing amazing guests with amazing stories or experts in their field. So today we are speaking to Maria. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Stuart.
So this is really good that we've been able to get Maria on. Business owner, small team, growing, amazing business. I'll get her to share what she does and where you are, etc. But we are connected through business networking and is an avid listener of the podcast. So we're going to add this little element at the end of the episode to find out why she listens, what value she gets from it. So while I hit the 20-minute timer, Maria, for the people who don't know you, if you just introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do.
I'm Maria Challis. I have a company called James Kitchens based in West Kirby, and we design and supply bespoke fitted kitchens to our local community and the Northwest.
Yeah, so and I can vouch for. I've not actually. I need to get to your showroom and tentatively bring my other half, Mrs. Waddington, Jenny, with me. But I say that tentatively. That's probably why I haven't been yet. So thank you very much. We're going to have the link to your business and connection. Go and check that out in the comments below. So let's start with the two questions that we always start with. So hashtag leadership. What's on your mind? What comes to your mind when you think of the word leadership?
Oh gosh, I tend to think that leadership is more mentoring. So it's about actually working alongside people and really eking out their inner beliefs as to who they are, empowering them to become the best version of themselves. It's not really about telling them what to do. It's more a case of working out what their best skill sets and getting them to work to the highest level that they can.
Yeah, amazing. I like that. And then we were just chatting before we came on as well, which we might get to, about your amazing team you have and why that is as well, which is quite unique as well. So staying with you and your leadership journey, we always ask people how far back are they going at the start of their leadership journey. So whether it's on reflection or whether it was a light bulb moment at the time, where do you think your leadership journey goes back to? How far are we going?
Oh gosh, right. How far back? I don't think I ever really understood what leadership meant. But I think if you were to ask my brother and sisters, I've always been a bit bossy and always wanted to probably lead a situation. And that still happens now, even when I'm with my brother and sisters. We recently just arranged my mum's memorial, and it just suddenly felt like I was being asked what I think and what I should do, or Maria will do that. And so it was like a natural thing. So I'm guessing I'm going to go back as far as when we were sort of young teenagers together at home, and I would more often than not sort of be coordinating, you know, things for us to do if it was to arrange parties for mum and dad's anniversary or get things together. So I love nothing more than arranging an event, that's for sure. I love to do that. I do find it's probably one of my key skills is making sure everything gets done in an orderly fashion. Yeah. But as far as that actually leadership with people that were wanting to be led in that environment, I think it was thrust upon me somewhat when I worked for a double glazing company, and we got taken over by a company. So we were Allerton Glass and then got taken over by Magnet, the big Magnet that everybody knows. Yeah. And when that happened, obviously there was a lot of manoeuvring within a company, lots of restructuring. And I think it was at that point I was looked to manage and supervise an admin team. And I was absolutely panicking, thinking, oh my goodness. But actually, I realized at that point that I knew how I was going to lead these people and that they were looking to be led, and they would ask me lots of questions. So I think it was at that point when I suddenly realized within a company environment that actually I had maybe the attributes that were helpful to get the most out of people, to bring people together and make something happen.
Yeah, I love that. So like I say, well, let's build up to where you are now. So tell us a little bit about the story of how you've got to now running your own business and how you started that with there's a big thing is about starting your own business, but obviously adding the people element into that and having full autonomy as the business owner to create that team. So tell us a little bit about how that came about and what you now have as a business.
Okay, so if I'm going to go back a little way here because I've had businesses before. So the very first business that I had with my partner was actually a vending business, and that was many years ago. So I'm talking back to perhaps 1998. It was run in conjunction with when we were working full time, and we had an opportunity and we had another business partner. I wasn't really heavily involved, apart from I did all the banking element of it and I did all of the bookkeeping side of it in the background, and there wasn't really anybody to run, but that was a business that just needed coordinating. And so when me and my husband finished at Magnet, we sometime later set up our own business in double glazing, but it was the fascia and soffit side. And so we started that off from at home. And again, we used the key people that we'd worked with before, and so we did nab them a little bit from where they were currently working and took them in. So we were working from home, and we brought in people that my husband was an incredible leader and an amazing entrepreneur. And he had real foresight, and obviously you can't do anything but learn from somebody in that environment. And we gradually built a team together. So we didn't just suddenly start with a team. You know, you bring people in with their expertise, their skill sets that so you can't do it alone. You know, none of us can do that alone, as they say. None of us are an island, and we have to bring in key people to be able to support what we want to do. So initially it went from, you know, me doing the installation and coordinating that side and my husband selling. And then we built on that. So you add in those elements as you go, and it just built and built over time. And then obviously my circumstances changed, and I found myself after my husband's death running the business by myself. But what I did realise, which was a massive learning curve for me, is that when there's two of you, it's very, very different going to one. That sounds obvious, but when you're there as a united front and suddenly that situation changes, you think that people will adapt with you, and actually sometimes they don't, and they didn't. And so we worked at it for quite a good few years, and realised that suddenly my ideals were not the same as my husband's. And so our journey had then changed. It had stopped and it had changed because our situation had changed. Yeah. And the people that were in my business didn't want to change with me. And as hard as I tried, as hard as I brought new people on board, there were some big characters in very, you know, good positions that didn't want to change, and they were really butting against me. And really, it was at a time during the recession that I really probably couldn't have sustained just getting rid of them or doing any, or you know, asking them to leave and, you know, doing buyouts and things like that. So it was easier to close the business and say, right, well, that was done. But actually, when I look back, my passion had gone, and that can happen in situations like that. So when you don't have the buy-in of your staff, when you don't have them on the same page as you no matter how hard you try, you're not going to get them on board, and you have to make hard decisions. And I did. And so I came away from that. It was sad, but actually not as sad as I thought it was going to be. And I then I gathered myself back, and then I went and worked for a big blue chip company that was only in its third year actually, but had done amazing things in its first 3 years. And I went in as actually a PA because I was just desperate to do anything other than what I'd been doing. Yeah. And I went in and loved it, but wanted more. And they gave me more, so I wasn't a PA for very long, and I obviously realised really early on that whilst I didn't perhaps want some responsibility, as far as I didn't want to have to think about wages, I didn't want to have to think about you know, all the behind the scenes that you get in a business, but what I did want is to really lead, and I felt that I had something to give. And my bosses were brilliant. They actually allowed me to do this, even though they weren't thinking of that position for me. And so within a short period of time, I was working alongside them with 15 branches. And yes, electrical was an electrical wholesalers, and they had over 100 branches throughout the UK. And so I was really in a quite an intriguing position at this point, because I could gather all the information I needed and work with all these different people. But my challenge was, how do I get them to actually work alongside all the ideals of the company? Now that's actually a massive challenge, because my bosses were doing it from a different element. They were doing it that they needed to get the figures, they needed to get them to hit targets every single month. But actually the other infrastructure items, as in health and safety, and making sure that all their customers were dealt with, making sure debt recovery was being done, making sure the HR elements were being done, because they were run as franchises. So they had their own trading sheets and things like that every month that they had to deal with, but actually they didn't know or understand them. Now, whilst they had an amazing training academy, and they did, it was absolutely awesome, they didn't necessarily teach all those little bits. And actually, again, if you don't have the buy-in, these people were just going along to training because they had to, not because they wanted to.
Yeah.
And they would sit there and nod in all the right places, and you'd see some of them were absolutely brilliant, and they really had the buy-in, but there were others that really, really didn't. And those were the people within the branches. Again, small teams of maybe 4 to 5 within these branches. You've only got to have one of them that isn't actually playing ball or not engaged, and it can fall apart very quickly. And this was the problem, and the big bosses couldn't quite see it. I could see it. It was trying to get the buy-in, and that's the hardest bit. So working individually with these branches was ideal. I'd go there every day for a few months. I'd work with them, try and get them on board with it, try and help with the managers to explain to them why they needed to make sure their health and safety was in check, and that basically if you don't and someone dies, it's your fault because the big bosses are already covered, you know. And so it was educating them, and it was a really interesting process, because prior to me actually doing that with the branches, I actually got to work with the head office and find out all that element first. So I learned a huge amount about how I was going to help these teams to perform, and not just by getting the end result with, you know, zeros on the end of every month, but actually finding out what made them tick. What do they really want to do? Some of them felt that they were overlooked. Some of them felt that what they were doing was beneath them. Some of them felt that they were never going to be able to go beyond where they were because there wasn't anywhere for them to go. And so it was making sure that they could have training put in, that they could actually do MVQs, or they could do something else that was going to give them further, you know, qualifications to enable themselves, which the branch managers don't always do because they're just on one train of thought. So from there, that enabled me to help them, and then they performed. So from that level, that was me realizing that what I was good at was actually filling the gap, filling that gap between where the roles were, and getting them to believe in themselves and to realize that they played an important part rather than just being a number. And a majority of them felt like that. And that really saddened me, because it was like, this is a great company. It really was a great company. It is a great company, but actually they're missing the point. And that was it.
How often do you, that's really amazing to hear that story, because obviously we were chatting as we came on before. That's one of the reasons I was getting you on, because I know that you've got an amazing business, you've got an amazing team. And again, for me, hearing that really shows me this is where it's come from. It's been experience. It's been your self-awareness of these things happening in the first place. And that comes up quite a lot in the podcast, that people say that the reason why they're in the position they are, or this skill set and leadership they have now, is from just experience, exposure, looking and seeing. And like you said, some people don't see it. And that's part of the job, isn't it, to get them to see it and to create. So tell us a little bit about how you've now embedded that into your team now.
Well, obviously, I went so far with the company. I was with that company for 3.5 years. And I sort of turned around to my boss, and I sort of said to both of them, I said, I want more. And they said, what do you want more money? I said, well, that's all very nice. I said, but that's not what's really driving me. I said, I want to be able to have something of my own. And they said, well, the next job's ours and we're not going anywhere. So, and I said, I know it's a problem. They said, would you want to leave? I said, I don't really want to leave. I said, but I need more. And so anyway, I was chatting with my partner about this, and within sort of a few weeks, he had heard about a business that was up for sale, and it had all the right attributes that we were looking for. And my partner said, I think this would be great for you. This is just what you need. And that's exactly what happened. So that business was bought, and here I am with James now. And it's been brilliant. It's been, again, a massive curveball was thrown at me, because when I got into the business, it wasn't as we hoped it would be. It was sort of, there was obviously a little bit of a mask that was put on it. And so it took me a while to get to the nuts and bolts. And what I found with that business was that I was going to need to strip it right back, take it right back. So it's as if it was a startup business again, in one respect, although with this amazing amount of history and all of this reputation that was, you know, we're going to be in our 50th year next year as a company. And it was the first ever kitchen studio on the Wirral. So it's got a lot of history that I love. But actually, the people in it are new, including myself. In actual fact, I have one member of staff that's only been there for 4.5 years, so that's longer than the rest of us. But one of my passions actually is what I realised, it was massive lack of communication yet again. Nobody really understood where the company wanted to get to. Nobody really understood the ideals or values of the company, and they were literally just plodding along. And there was lots of, you know, holes basically that needed to be filled again. And that's no disrespect to the previous ownership. It's just that I think times had changed, and maybe they hadn't quite kept up with the changes that were required. Great little business though. And so one of the biggest things for me is you need to value your staff. You need to empower them. You need to find out what their wants, their needs, and their passions are, because if you don't, you're going to lose them. And you don't want to lose good staff. Good staff are really hard to get hold of. Now, if you were to ask my staff this question, they will tell you stories of how long it took me to get members of staff. With Beth, who's my most recent designer, it took me 11 interviews to get her, and it took me a whole year to find her. Wow. And I'm picky. And the reason I'm picky is because that's what my clients deserve. They deserve to have the best, and they deserve to have, but I also deserve to have people that I can work with that value what I value. We talk about commonality. We talked about this when we've done our networking previously. Commonality is a massive factor when you're in a really tiny team, and you'll know this yourself. So when you're in a small team, you can't have those bad apples, because they rot, and they rot the entire team. So it's really important that I find a team that could knit together, that can work together, that can play together, and understand and support one another. So we do have appraisals, we do have annual reviews, and we do have collaborative meetings, should I say, as well as team talks, and obviously the fun stuff and going out and you know, having those team events that we all want to do to build. So from my point of view, I need to know what floats their boat. So for Stephen, for example, he has met a lot of his goals that we set in his first and second appraisal, because he's now in his 3rd year with me, and he is well on his way to hitting his markers, not just the salary income that he wants, but also, you know, things that, even simple things like joining the gym, getting the car he wants, but also he wants to become a trainer. He wants to train staff. So he's with me on growing the team. So I now know where he's looking to go to. So I'm then looking at the team thinking, right, well, where can we do this? We want to grow the team. This is where we're at. So my next view then is with the team is to tell them, this is when we need to get another member of team. This is what we need to do to get there. And this is my view, short term, mid-term, long term. And having those development plans for them is so important, as long as they reach them or they attain a majority of what they're putting on it. Beth, for instance, she in the end wants to have a container home. She's got a piece of land that they're buying in Crete, and that's her long-term plan. Her short-term plan is she wants to have her own business, and she wants to do that in 3 to 5 years. Well, I want to help her do that. Yeah. There's nothing that would please me more than all of them hitting their targets and getting to where they want to. Elaine, one of her passions was to get her own home. She's just about to do that. She's bought her house and she's on her way. And I'm not saying that I've got anything to do with that, but it's empowering them to believe they can do those sort of things. Yeah. And all of those things are nothing to do with their job, but they are. Yes. getting them to believe that they can do it, getting them to believe that they are an important part of my business, getting them to realize that they are my business, that this is their business, it's not mine, it's theirs. And also letting the clients know how much of an integral part they play and how important it is for us that they have their dream kitchen is so important. So everything we do with precision, we do it with transparency, and we do it with honesty. And they're a lot of the values that I want to see in other people. And it's my passion and their passion that makes it work.
Yeah, amazing. I think from just hearing it, it's been great just to listen to you, because I know when I speak to you, there's a lot of passion behind what you do, and I'm hoping that definitely comes across. You can understand, and even obviously I know you very well. I think the audience will just see and hear and just imagine what your business and team look like. That's how detailed and good it comes across. So brilliant. So that's 20 minutes, but I'm going to pinch a little bit extra time off you. So I haven't got too long, but I know that you listen to the podcast, and I know that I said to you before, I'd love to have you on for the reason that you've just spoken about, but also because you're an ideal listener of the podcast. And I just want to sort of pinch your thoughts about why you listen and what you get from it. And over to you, really.
Well, certainly other people's experiences. So one that definitely stands out for me was the husband and wife team. He's a blind climber, and she's the leader. And what I really got from that was that the intrinsic belief in one another, and that it's undeniable, and they literally are like gloves. They lock together, and the fact that they are as one. And I think one of the biggest things that we struggle with is belief in other people, that they believe in us. So what I took from that is sometimes you've just got to let go, literally, and let somebody take the fall. And then there was the other one with the chap from WD-40.
Oh, Gary Ridge, yes.
Yeah, and he was talking about the people within the team, and the fact that he doesn't believe in giving them titles, or in that respect, they're all as one. And I absolutely loved that, because the one thing I always say is it's a Masonic phrase, because my husband used to be in the Masons, and it's never above you, never below you, always alongside you. And I repeatedly say this to my team: none of us are better than one another. We're all, and it was so great to hear it from a big leader like that, in the fact that he's got a successful company and he truly believes in that. And lots of people look at me and they do a bit of an eye roll when I say it, but actually when I listened to that, it gave me that full sort of conciliatory factor that actually he has a similar belief to me. So I totally got on board with that one. And then I think the Tranmere Rovers,
Dawn Tolsher.
Yeah, she was amazing. And I think what I loved about her is that the fact that she inspires others outside of her work domain, in the fact that she's helping so many others, and she believes in getting them young and inspiring them from a young age, and she does that totally voluntarily. And she's always speaking, and she pushes so hard, and for me that is so inspiring, in the fact that you're giving that away to try and help others to believe in themselves, which is totally on my wavelength.
Yeah,
completely.
Amazing. Awesome. 3 recommendations there. Awesome. I'll probably put those episodes in the links below as well, so if people are listening to this and want to start looking at some recommendations on the podcast, go and check those out. So Maria, thank you so much for your time. I can't believe it flies by. I say this every time. So guys, if you've enjoyed this, make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit follow on your podcast provider. And as I say, please share with us the bits that you really take away from these episodes, and please pass them forward. It really helps us promote what we're trying to do here, which is add value to your leadership journey. So Maria, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Stuart. I've loved it.
Thank you very much. And guys, see you all next week. Take care. Bye.